Thank you, Carol. As you heard, my name is RJ Paleski. Call sign is KD2BLJ, and I'll be telling you about how young hams can construct wideband dipole antennas, also known as bow tie antennas, without power tools. Now, like my previous presenter, my story starts at Field Day 2011. In June of 2011, my father and I attended the field day with some amateur radio friends. My dad and I were operating a 40-meter station, and I soon learned why every station has an antenna tuner. Every time our station changed frequency more than 75 kilohertz, we had to adjust the inductance and capacitance dials on the antenna tuner. If we didn't do this, the high SWR would cause the radio transmitter to shut down. Readjusting the antenna tuner took a couple of minutes, and I'm sure that the other stations on the frequency didn't appreciate the carrier noise. I asked my dad why we had to readjust the antenna tuner so often. He said that the 40-meter wire dipole antennas do not have a very wide bandwidth, and 75 kilohertz is about the operating range of most 40-meter dipoles. The problem is that the wire diameter of the dipole is very small compared to the wavelength of the 40-meter radio waves, and the fact that it was hanging from a tree didn't help. So to solve the narrow bandwidth problem, we would have to use cables big enough to hold a major suspension bridge. Or take your design in a different direction. By the way, I think this bridge might load up just fine and make a great antenna. So, to calculate the length of a dipole antenna, we use the formula 468 over the frequency in megahertz to get the total feet in length. Now, at 7 megahertz, we have a 67-foot dipole, and at 7.3 megahertz, we have a 64-foot dipole. And here's where the problem is. There's no one dipole antenna that can reach all the frequencies in the 40-meter band. So most people just settle compromise for 65.5. But you don't really get great signal on 7 and 7.3. So the challenge became how to simulate a massively thicker conductor in order to improve the bandwidth of the antenna without greatly increasing the weight of the antenna. And for an additional challenge, we had to be able to construct this antenna with parts readily available from a local hardware store, such as Home Depot, using no power tools except for a small battery-powered drill. The total price of this antenna is under $30, and that included the homemade ballot. Simulating a larger conductor. Instead of using just one wire, use two wires on each side of the dipole. Space them far enough apart so that they appear to be one large conductor. Now, why make a dipole that is shaped like a bow tie? Because it's wideband, enough to cover the entire 40-meter band. It's space efficient, and it is physically shorter than a standard dipole. Now, how do we build this? What do I need to buy? And how do I put it together? I'm glad I asked. Before we start, we'll need a tubing cutter. You can find these all over the flea market right here at Dayton. I found a few myself. The reason we'll need this is because you're going to need an 8-foot section of PVC piping. You'll have to use the tubing cutter to cut that 8-foot into two 4-foots. You'll also have to drill 2 holes, one about an inch away and another inch away from that. The top one will be for the support cable, and the second one will be for the actual wire. Thank you. Now, what we're going to do first is we're going to have to measure out 29 feet. What you're going to do is you're going to take your one of your 4-foots, and you're going to lay it down flat on the ground. And perpendicular to that, you're going to measure out 29 feet. Make sure that you put 2 stakes in where the PVC pipe is, so that if it rolls away or you accidentally knock it over, you'll know where the actual pipe is, so you're not going to have to readjust the entire process. After marking out 29 feet, mark it with a stake, and then get a spool of wire, and mark that down, put that in the ground with a rod as well. This will let you easily pull from the spool when you need more wire. This is me hammering a spike. Now, what you're also going to do is you're going to pull out wire, and you're going to want more than enough. I had to actually walk out into the street. I made sure to look both ways. I walked out into the street, and I made sure I had pulled enough wire out that I could use it all. After that, I put the wire through the inner hole of the PVC pipe, and I pull it through. I also have to pull it through the other end, which is why you need a lot of the extra cable, or the wire. You also need a lot of extra wire because you have to walk it down through to the other side, twice. Now for the ballot. This is where you're going to need to use the battery-operated drill. I recommend with an adult supervision and wearing safety goggles. Using the drill at an angle near the top of the pipe, and you're going to pull the coax cable through that hole and out to the top. You're going to wrap the wire around it about at least 20 times. And after that, you're going to pull the wire down through it and then secure it with the wire tie. I recommend black wire tie because lights don't really handle UV light well, and they get brittle under the sunlight. Now, once you've done with the wire tie, you're going to pull that through another hole in the bottom and out through the bottom of the ballon. Now comes the fun part. Stripping the coax cable and connecting it to the two conductors. This one's a little fuzzy, but it shows the solder connection of the two cables to the coax. And this is also a little fuzzy. We're going to use some RTV silicone sealant to waterproof the connection. Now, this is where you got to be careful, because if you seal it and you made a bad connection, it's going to be very difficult to get off. So I recommend double and triple checking the connection before you put the sealant on. After the sealant's on, tape it up and seal it again. Now, how does this work? By measuring the SWR of the 40-meter band, you can see that we got ours close to, well, this is the second antenna of this type that I've constructed. The first one my dad and I built together. I know that the SWR will improve once we install it in a free space. Hanging a 40-meter dipole off an urban office building is hardly the environment for the optimal performance, but it was the best way to get readings for this presentation. I expect the SWR to drop to 1.2, and I don't expect it to be more than 1.7 at the band angles. Now, the overall length ended up being under 57 feet, so this is a very space-efficient antenna. I encourage you to give this design a try. Now, we made this for Mother's Day, but my mom didn't want it. She's on her hand, it's not her fault. So, Dad, this bow tie antenna is for you. 15 years and I still managed to get you a tie. Thank you in 7th grade.